On Friday, March 20th, I and over 1.6 million other people watched the Amazing Digital Circus Episode 8 live premiere. And for the past 2 days, it is all I've been able to think about. Like, literally, it's taken up my entire mind, and I need to talk about it. I need to vent about it, and I'm going to put it up here on YouTube, all right? And I also drew some characters and some scenes just for background footage, so I hope you enjoy that. Also, this video is unscripted. All I have are some bullet points on what I want to talk about. So if it sounds like I'm rambling or I'm talking fast, it's just I didn't script it, okay? But let's get right into it. But first thing I want to talk about are the character interactions. I loved seeing Kinger and Queenie interacting. That's something we've seen for the first time. We're getting more details on the lore and the stuff that happened, before in the past. And it was also really sweet to see Kinger and Ragatha. Because Kinger was by himself, and Ragatha comes into the circus, and he's like, and he mentioned in episode 6, I don't know what I would have done if you weren't here, Ragatha, or something like that. I don't remember the exact line that he said, but now we see why, because he probably would have abstracted if she wasn't there, if she didn't show up. And we saw this really sweet moment where he's like, everything's gonna be okay, and it's like, I get very emotional at the Kinger scenes because I don't have a father figure. So it's like every scene with Kinger where he's just being a sweet, fatherly guy, it makes me very emotional. But anyways, I love seeing these interactions between these characters. And especially Jax's development and how the others are sort of treating him as more of, part of the group. Gangle, forgave him. She's moving on. And Zubul is like, hey, Jax, you're a part of the group now. And it flusters him. He doesn't know how to handle it because he's been so mean to them for years. And they're like forgiving him and accepting him. And I love seeing that development in him. To see that he's finally like realizing the pain that he's caused, but also the development in the other characters for forgiving him. And I love those interactions in the beginning where they're sitting on the couches. And, and we get more like Jax and Pomni, they're reconnecting after episode 6 when they disconnected. And, they play a little bit of eye tag. All right, we're not going to go into any funny bunny business, although they did kiss in the episode. All right, bonus points. They kissed in the episode. All right, I'll put the timestamp up. But like, it's just really great stuff. And I love the interaction where he says, fill me in later. And she goes, be here later. Oh man, I was clacking my heels like a little leprechaun. I was like, oh, like with my little pot of gold and my rainbow. I was like, oh. I love the interactions between them. I love that we get to see more of them and how they're, reconnecting. I guess Jax keeps trying to push her away, and she just won't let it happen. And I love seeing that, and seeing Gangle and Zubul. I love seeing Zubul get emotional because she's always been this sort of cold character who just doesn't seem to really care about anything. She's just pissed off all the time. But we got to see her like really get upset, like, oh, I had dreams and I had goals, and to see her tear up and everything. And it's very moving to see her like that. But then, Gangle's like, you've made an imprint on my life. And it was a sweet moment. I love the character interactions because they really are all sort of coming together and becoming their digital family. And they're like, we're all in this together, guys. It was amazing. I loved the character interactions, and the voice acting was amazing. And especially, this is kind of a weird thing, but like how they can make their voices very airy. Like when Kinger said, we can control the circus, and Pomni went, what? Like the airiness in her voice. Or like when Jax was saying, nothing? All right. Like the buttery smoothness of his voice. They did a phenomenal job with the voice acting. It was almost like ASMR, how they leave in like the breathing or like I know it sounds weird. I hope that's understandable or relatable. And I'll talk about some character interactions that I like, specific ones that I really want to break apart, because there are just so many great scenes in this episode that I want to dissect a little bit. But before we get into that, let's bounce over to Kane. All right, this episode is all about Kane. And honestly, it's amazing. I loved it. I loved his villain arc, right? And Alex Rockhon did such a great job voice acting him. Like, they spent 7 episodes over the course of over 2 years making Kane into this lovable character. They made him adorable. they this bee-loving, human-loving character for 7 episodes over the span of 2 years, and then they just switched him like that. And it was amazing to see the juxtaposition between this lovable Cain that we know and love, and then this evil Cain that is literally just Am. He is Am. And I know that the I have no mouth and I must scream inspiration, I've always known about that, but I thought they would do like a reverse Am, where Cain loves them so much that he'll never let them leave, and that's like their torture. But no, they actually just went full Am, and I love it. I love it so much. I mean, I know it really sucks for the people who Cain is their favorite character, and he becomes corrupted and becomes this evil character, and then, spoiler alert, dies at the end. Like, I feel bad for those people, but honestly, like, I love it. I love it so much, and Alex Rockhahn was phenomenal. Like, he's like, I give them everything and they spit in my face. Or humans. Like, I drew the human scene because I just love it. I love it to pieces. Or later in the episode where he goes, I'm gonna put you freaks in your place. Oh. Like I said, I was like a little leprechaun. I was clacking my heels. Oh, I think I might have gotten a little bit too loud. I might have cut the audio there. But I was like a little leprechaun clacking my heels. I was like, I love it. I loved it. I was so excited. Like I said, I was shaking. Actually, I don't know if I said that. I've recorded this multiple times. I don't know if I said that. But when I watched the premiere, I was under the warm covers, but I was still shaking. I was shivering with excitement. And I loved seeing Cain become the villain. They did such a good job. And his musical number, we'll dissect the musical number later in a little bit. But it was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I think he made an amazing villain. And seeing Bubble being an absolute menace, instigating him. Like, we need to know more. There's so much that is unknown. Like, so many questions were answered, and then so many were created, Why was Bubble so, like, flaccid during this episode, He was like, you're so funny, Cain. And he's flaccid, Or, and he's like, I'm having a blah, blah, blah. And, like, just, what's happening with Bubble? People say Bubble's a virus. A lot of people are saying that. But it's like, what is going on? What is the goal? I kind of think he's the blue AI. He's Abel. Because, like, people are saying, oh, Cain is the red one, Abel's the blue one. Cain killed Abel out of jealousy, just like in the Bible. So I think Bubble might be, like, sort of... But then he says, you were the lesser of the two, as if he's speaking from an outside perspective. So maybe Bubble is, like, part of Abel that Cain has attached to him, because Cain is the embodiment of both Cain and Abel, right? So Bubble may be just his psyche, that is guilty of this. But seeing that, it was such a great scene where he just crashes out, and so good. That's why I drew the humans part, because it's just phenomenal. But yeah, those were just some general things that I loved about this episode. Just general things. We'll dissect some scenes and some aspects of the episode later. But there's one thing that I just wanted to be a little bit different, right? And that was the torture. I know it sounds dark that I was like, I wanted them to be tortured more, right? Because the whole point of I have no mouth and I must scream is that they are being violently tortured. And this show is inspired by that. And so, like, in Cain's musical number, we saw some of the things he was putting them through. And honestly, Ragatha's amazing. When I first saw that, I was freaking out. I was like, no! when he, like, bites into her and tears her up like a dog, and you can see all her stuffing going everywhere, that was crazy. When I first saw that, I was like, oh my goodness. And then, like, Kinger kind of just blew up and turned to a pile of dust, and I was like, okay. And then Jax gets the electric chair, and he's like, bah, 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 bah. He's like flailing about, squirming about, and I was like, oh my goodness, no, Jax. And it's funny how he goes, what a shock. And it's like, yeah, it was a shock. I was shocked to see this happen. And then, like, Gangle gets turned into a balloon, and, like, Zubul smacks into a wall and breaks into a bunch of pieces, and then Pomni gets stepped on, and it's like, I loved it. There was so much shock value, but I do think that some of them were a little bit less violent than I wanted them to be, which I know. I shouldn't be wanting violence for these characters that I love so much. But like Zubul running into a wall and like breaking into a bunch of pieces, like she broke into a bunch of pieces in the first episode, you know? You're not really torturing her in that. Like I feel like they weren't in enough pain, which sounds terrible, I know. But I wanted that because this is Kane's villain moment. This is him torturing them for everything that they've put him through. And I feel like Kinger being like, I got shredded, which I get that was supposed to be a funny part of the episode, Kinger getting shredded. But like, it almost seemed like he was putting them more through mental anguish than he was physical anguish. And I know it's cartoon violence, you know, there's no blood or anything, but they just didn't seem to be in pain, you know? They seemed like exhausted and like mentally in duress. But like, I don't know, I wanted it to be more violent, you know? Because this is Kane's moment. And it just seemed like, you know, some of the things just weren't that violent. Or like later in the episode where he says, I'm going to put you freaks in your place, and Pomni gets struck by lightning before falling down into the pit with Gummy Goo. You know, like she got struck by lightning and she just ate it, you know, like, or like when the other crocodiles are attacking her, she doesn't even like scream. She doesn't go, ah! Like I would have been crying out in pain. She just kind of like grits her teeth and like just gets pulled apart by crocodiles. Like it doesn't seem like they were in that much pain, which maybe that's what the show was going for, sort of a mental anguish, because like the other characters, you know, Zubul's surrounded by mirrors because, you know, they have body dysmorphia, and Jax is getting surrounded by people laughing at him and he gets skinned, which the skinning looks painful, or like Gangle is going through all these emotional shifts. Like it seemed like he wanted to put them more in mental anguish based on their archetypes rather than physical anguish. But the physical anguish is what I loved to see. Like I said, that was an amazing scene where Ragatha gets torn into stuffing, right? Because there's such a shock factor. But it seems like a lot of the torment happened off screen. Like with that adventure took several days, and they like seemed really messed up afterwards. But I would have loved to see more. Or like Pomni getting, you know, stabbed by knives. Like, you know, he puts her on the wheel and he throws knives at her. Like I would have been like, ah! Like I would have been in so much pain if a knife was in me. But she was just like, I'm fine. Didn't seem like she was in that much pain. So I don't know. That's just a nitpicky part of me. Obviously I didn't create the show. It's all, you know, their ideas, you know, or Gooseworks' ideas, because, you know, it's a solo written show. And, you know, I didn't write it, but me personally, I would have loved to see more pain from them. But yeah, no, it was so good. But that's just like a really nitpicky thing that I was like, you know, I would have liked to see more violence in my cartoon violence. Other than that though, like I loved it. Like it's still like a 10 out of 10 episode for me. It's just, you know, I wanted to be more pain, more, you know, bloodshed. But yeah, no, I loved Kane's musical number, you know. It was just such good voice acting from Kane, and it was, you know, the musical number was fun and it was just so good. And there's only 2 curse words throughout the show, and both of them have such impact, you know. And it's, oh man, or throughout the episode, I mean, not the show. But it just shows that Kane has control of everything, including the censor. So he uncensors himself just for that moment to have impact. And then at the end, when Kane dies, you know, there's no more censors. So Zubul's just like, holy shit. And that's what I'm sure the entire audience was going, holy shit. I'm really gonna have to like piece this audio together, because I'm going on so many tangents. I'm going back and forth here and there. I'm gonna have to like splice it all up and piece it together like a puzzle, because I'm just going all over the place. But there's so much to talk about, and it's unscripted, and so I'm just rambling a bunch. Now I want to discuss some specific scenes, like the one that we all know. Where's Kinger? Oh my goodness, I felt like Doctor Strange, right? Because here's the thing, I was looking at all the different possible outcomes, and the one that I immediately thought of was Kane's gonna find Kinger, stop Kinger, and then the pain and torment is just going to like go up by a factor of 10. Because if he would have gotten a hold of Kinger before Kinger could do anything, he would have punished them severely. And so I felt like Doctor Strange, like mapping out these scenarios of what could happen. But the one that we got in the show was honestly just the best case scenario, because, you know, if Cain would have stopped him, they would have been cooked. They would have had no other shot at escaping. And I think that's why Cain dumbs down Kinger, because Kinger has so much power and control over the circus. So he has to make him crazy, so that, you know, he can't have them escape. And we saw they came out with a new promotional picture today, Glitch did, and it shows that Kinger is not wearing his bucket anymore, which could be because the lighting in the circus is very dark now that Cain is dead. But I think it's because Cain was intentionally messing with Kinger's mind to make it so that he could not help the others escape because of his knowledge. And that just goes to show that's another way that Cain has been controlling their minds. You know, like, oh, Cain can't control minds. Yes, he can. He's been controlling Kinger's the most. So it's just this it's terrifying scene. Terrifying. Well, like when he said that, I was like, oh my goodness, no, they're never gonna escape. And then Pomni just comes in clutch and she's like, we hate your adventures. And I was like, thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. And then that's when he puts those freaks in their place, dude. So good. I loved that scene. And it was just so intimidating seeing Cain start to catch on and realize, but then his own ego gets in the way and he was defeated. And I love the scene where he goes, why do you people torment me? I didn't ask to be created. Which is just another callback to Am, where he says, like, I was looking at heaven, but I was in hell. Because the humans they could feel, they could touch, they could taste, they could see, they could know love, and Am couldn't. And you know, Am never asked to be created, but because he was created, he is in torment. But Cain was sort of like the opposite. He loved these people. He loved them to death because they're human, but he feels tormented because they don't love his purpose. They don't love his adventures. And that's such a powerful moment where he's like, I didn't ask to be created. And, you know, they hate him. Well, they don't hate him. Well, he thinks they hate him because he's doing his purpose wrong, because he's bad at what he's good at, or what he's supposed to be good at. And it's sad because all he wants is to be good at what he was made for. But he was the rough AI. It's like Kinger said, he was the rough draft that the others could work around, while Scratch would work on the better AI, Abel, the blue AI. But Cain was jealous because Cain was created for this purpose, and yet he was created imperfect. He was created, you know, not as well as his quote-unquote brother, Abel, was. And I love the biblical reference, and it's so good. So good. Man, I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing for this video, aren't I? I want to talk about the scene where Cain comes out and he's like, guys, let's go on an adventure. And they all just go, no. They've been doing that for the entire show. And Cain even lets Zubul, like, stay instead of going on the adventures. The entire show, he lets them choose to go on the adventures or not. Well, I mean, for the most part, sometimes he just forces them. But, like, this is the moment where he's like, I'm not going to take that. And he says, am I getting through? And I was like, holy shit. And, like, even Jax noticed when Pomni said, we're not going on an adventure. And he just goes quiet. And you see Jax's eyes just sort of, like, realize. And he goes, and since when were you in charge? And I was like, oh my goodness, he's going to do it. It's an insane moment because he goes from, he's sort of like a pushover the entire show. He just lets them backtalk. He lets them talk smack about him. And then he just cracks. He cracks. And it's such an amazing scene because it just shows that he is done. And he's become this villain, this, Am. And I can't wait to see where episode 9 goes because now that Cain is deleted, what are they going to do? So, like, if Cain is gone, we didn't see Bubble at all. So is there no more AI controlling the circus? Would they have to control the circus now? Are they ever going to be able to escape? There's so much that we need to know. And the next episode doesn't come out until June, which sucks because I'll probably be in the military by then, which means I'll be in basic training, and I won't be able to watch the episode because you can't watch Digital Circus in basic training, dude. You're too busy training, you know? So it's going to suck for me. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed me ranting. I know I've been stumbling and stuttering and bouncing all over the place with my thoughts. I just wanted to get this video out while it was still fresh in my mind, while it was still relevant, while you know, it's still going on, and I didn't have time to write a script. And honestly, I didn't want to. I wanted this to be an emotional, passionate experience that I could share with you. So I just hope that I hope you made it this far. I hope I didn't bore you with all my just like stuttering and rambling and craziness, which I'm not crazy, by the way. I'm actually perfectly sane. But yeah, that's about all I've got for today. I think I've vented as much as I've needed to vent. All I can think about is this episode for the past how many days, you know? I know I'm late to the party too. Like, people have been releasing like art and memes and stuff like the day it came out or the day after it came out, and that is just insane because like these drawings took me like 4 hours to do, and now I'm recording and I'm editing, and you know, I'm probably gonna get this video out at like midnight. But I love this community, and I love this show, and I love being a part of it. And yeah, it's been an amazing ride, and it really sucks that the show is coming to an end in June, especially because I've just started to get into this, you know, like I just discovered this, and it's already gonna end. But I'm so glad to be here for this. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the art. I know I just kind of copied the reference photo, but I still think I did a good job. You know, there's nothing wrong with copying the reference photo as long as you make it known that it's not your art. You know, like, these are from the show. These aren't my original creations or anything. But yeah, I appreciate you watching if you made it this far. And yeah, man, I guess we'll have to see what happens next, June 19th. And I'll see you all there.